brilliant man, but extremely humble. That is A plus 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 in my book. I love the good guys. I'm always saying there's a guy wear a black hat or a white hat, and he's a white hat guy. So without further ado, I believe that Teresa, you are going to introduce the plan first, or we're going to let Steve go on and have it. She's the workhorse behind this too. She made sure we had all our meetings, kept us together. She corralled the cats. I mean, and it was not an easy task. I was on that plan as well. So Steve, coming up and look and let your audience know how wonderful you are and all the hard work you've been doing.
Thank you, Sharon, for that wonderful introduction. I am the current, soon-to-be ex-chairman of the Oso Creek, Oso Bay Committee. We're going to move forward. You'll talk about that in a little bit with the next step. But I would like to acknowledge, I think we have one of the committee members here, Lois, and then CARP is the other combined plan, and Jim is here with CARP. Anybody else? Any other stakeholders here? Or? All right. So this is going to be an interactive presentation. So I actually am going to encourage you to ask questions while we go. We're going to do some demonstrations, a lot of different slides. Teresa and I were working on PowerPoint presentations, and I was putting together my thoughts and notes on the PowerPoint, and then she had the official presentation, and then we compared them. They're like almost identical, but there's a few slides each. So I'm going to actually multitask and kind of run two different slideshows at the same time so we can pull in the data. So, okay, here we go. So we are looking at it's called now the Corpus Christi Regional Beaches and Bays Implementation Plan, because they took the Oso Creek and Oso Bay plan and they combined it with the Ropes and Cole Park plan. Ropes and Cole Park had a really cool acronym, you know, CARP, Cole and Ropes Park, CARP, right? We tried for probably 8 years with the Oso Creek and Oso Bay Implementation Plan Committee. We couldn't come up with a good acronym, so that's what the difference is between CARP and the other one. All right, let's move on. Let's see. All right, this is going to be the purpose of the presentation is to provide a summary overview of the implementation process for Cole Park, Rose Park, Oso Creek, and Oso Bay. We're going to discuss three kind of time categories: the beginnings, where we were, and then the identifying the problems, where we came from, and then implementing solutions, where we're going. So I've divided this into three time segments. And I got to tell you, I think I was voted in as the chair probably was 2014 maybe. And I know CARP was involved way before that. So this has been a pretty long period of time. And then we had kind of a loss of momentum from COVID. Unfortunately, we even lost a few committee members. That one died of COVID, another of cancer, and so it's been a rough last few years. But I think we finally got momentum going again, and we'll get to the point where we're going to be able to get this I-plan finished. So I'm going to switch over to the other official slideshow. Okay, so what is the problem? Bacteria in the water at Cole Park and Ropes Park beaches and Oso Bay and Oso Creek. They found Enterococcus bacteria at levels that were exceeding the water quality standards for recreational use, so they're deemed impaired. And so they were placed on the 303D list of impaired waters, and it requires development of a TMDL and then a development of an I-plan, implementation plan, a community-led solution process. Okay, these are some of the terms. TMDL is a scientifically derived target for water quality. The I-plan was created by communities working together to improve water quality, and we'll get into more of the details of that in a little bit. The I-plan includes stakeholders that came together to decide how to reach those goals. And there's a committee and a lot of different stakeholders from all over the region. And then the goal, obviously, is to restore the impaired waters back to recreational use. Any questions on that? Okay, the process is that we have impairment, and then a TMDL is created, and then the implementation plan. After that, 3-step process. And here are the TMDL development steps. It's on the list first, and then you initiate projects for impaired waters, there's allocation report, there's public comment, TCQ adoption, APA approval, and then develop the implementation plan. And that has public comment and TCQ approval. And then finally, the stakeholders implement the plan. We're basically at the end of the develop implementation plan process. Yes, ma'am.
Who are the stakeholders?
Question is, who are the stakeholders? That is a very good question. I've got another slide that's going to detail that. It was a wide range of community members, business, agriculture, different cities that were in the basin, TxDOT, education, and I think I've got a list of a bunch of the stakeholders we had. But yeah, it was multiple meetings for both CARP and the Oso Creek that these stakeholders met and over several years. Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not a TMDL expert. If there's somebody who can give that explanation, the acronym is total maximum daily load. It's just a measurement of how much that water can handle as far as how much you can put into it. Is that a better explanation? Got some head nods here. I'm a civil engineer. I'm not an environmental scientist, so I just go by the acronym. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the other slides for just a second here. Okay, this is an overview of the watershed from Google Earth, and it's large. Back in 2001, I was with a company called Golston Engineering, and Golston and Dodson Engineering were tasked with doing a stormwater master plan for the city of Corpus Christi. And that, gosh, it was right before, I remember it was right after 9/11, because we had planes that were going to do LiDAR, light detection and ranging, to get elevations of the basin, basically flying swaths back and forth all night long. And the week after 9/11 hit, we were planning to run those planes, and we couldn't. They were grounded. And then we didn't want to freak everybody out by having low flying airplanes at night, flying over the city. And so we had waited a month or two, but we did eventually get the data, and we put together, I'll show you here in a little bit, the map of the watershed. Included the elevation differences. It's 0 at the beach and maybe 100 out in Robstown. It's not a huge range of elevation, but there is definitely differences in elevation. And of course, then we could identify different subbasins and how the water all flows into the creek. That area was 300 square miles, and I was tasked with driving that area. It took me about a month to drive every day all over that whole watershed to kind of identify where the water is going. Later on, this model was created out of acrylic based on that LiDAR elevations, and I think it's the Nueces River Authority has that now. And is it Nueces River Authority that has that? And they use that for education purposes. They'll put a dot of food coloring on it and show rainfall. And we'll do a little demonstration here in a little bit. It's really interesting to watch, and it's really kind of a cool thing for kids and adults to see the impact of pollutants in the watershed. Okay, so this is the Oso Creek watershed. That's that 300 and some square mile watershed I was telling you about. And you'll see West Oso Creek coming in kind of south of Robstown. It goes all the way northwest of Robstown. It goes as far south as Tierra Grande. It's just a massively big area that pulls in a lot of water. And then this is an example of the key map for the stormwater master plan. And there were 9 subbasins. I don't know if you can read that. We've got Oso Creek, West Oso Creek. You've got Some of these don't drain directly into the Oso Creek. We have Nueces River, Inner Harbor, Nueces Bay, Corpus Christi Bay, Oso Bay, Laguna Madre, and Padre Mustang Island. Okay, and then Cole Park and Ropes Park is like one smaller subset of that. So this is the area that just drains into Cole Park. It's about 1,400 acres. I was with another company that was tasked with determining where all the floatables were coming from that they get blown out at the box culvert at Cole Park. And again, we did a study of the area and kind of found the sources. For that one, it's for floatables. This is an example of a map from the Stormwater Master Plan. This is the drainage area that goes into the Cole Park area. And the yellow line is like the ridge line. So anything that, a drop of rain that falls in this subbasin would go out at Cole Park. That's Cole Park, and that's the box culvert outlet. Now I want to show, let's go. Okay, this is the ropes area. Ropes is a little bit smaller, about 600 acres into the Ropes Park area. There's Ropes Park. Okay, so where were we at the time? This is a picture of the Richter Ditch. Comes off of Castoris Road on the south side of town near off of Saratoga. And this is where it falls into the Oso Creek. And I've had the opportunity to kayak the creek a couple times. And one summer it was real hot, and still that Richter Ditch was like pea soup. It was just green and thick with, fertilizer and growth, algae. And that picture right there kind of captures that. It was a still part of the year, not a lot of rainfall. So that's kind of part of the problem. I wanted to show this video. I don't know if y'all know Jace Tunnel. When Jace's son was 6 years old, he did this video. I've watched this thing 100 times. It's 2 minutes. I'm going to share it with you. I get emotional every time I see this. It's hard to watch this and not really get emotional about it. But this is All the Cups by Jack. So yeah, a 6-year-old, we want all the people to just stop throwing trash everywhere. I mean, it's that simple, a 6-year-old captured that. I have a hard time looking at that. It just makes me sick seeing all that stuff. And that's just the floatables. That's not even, we're talking about bacteria from, sewage and other sources. So anyway, Jack captured that really well. I think I lost my video here. I mean, my slide presentation. Let me get the other one back up. Okay, so that's where we were. This just talks a little bit about the where we were and how we got to the TMDLs and the impaired and all that. This is all in the I-plan. For those of you who want to read it, it will be available at some point. So I've asked to hold this up. This is the combined I-plan now. I was joking earlier that we got paid by the pound for this because it's a pretty thick document, but it represents a lot of work by a lot of people to solve these problems that we have. The stakeholders came up with a list of all kinds of management measures that'll help relieve some of these issues that we're running into. Okay, I'm going to switch back over to this one. Okay, where is the problem? Okay, this is a little bit more detailed picture showing the Corpus Christi Bay, the coal park there, that Louisiana Parkway outfall. That's the video that Jack had. That's a box culvert that runs down Louisiana, cuts across Del Mar campus, and picks up Port Avenue to the west. And then the Ropes Park is a little bit further south along the beach there, right near the Bronner Parkway outfall. And there's a picture of Coal Park and Ropes Park. And we saw this one earlier. This is the Oso Creek Basin. This is an interesting picture. So that's my friend Gilbert on the back of the kayak, and a couple of students from A&M Corpus Christi. They were tasked with doing some GIS work out there near Lavola Creek. They took this kayak up Oso, and they had tied it to a tree about 8 feet above the water at where Lavola meets Oso Creek, and a thunderstorm hit while they were out doing the survey. And they said the creek came up about 8 feet in literally like 30 minutes. It was just a very fast response. And those of you that have lived here a while know that Lavola Creek has been a real flooding issue for some subdivisions in that area. One of the things that Gilbert said was very noticeable was the smell of the fertilizer coming off the agricultural lands that were running right in it. It was just thick in the air. You could smell it from that initial rainfall. All right, where are we now? We have got a draft Corpus Christi Regional Implementation Plan for Coal Park, Ropes Park, Oso Bay, and Oso Creek. That was the document I just held up. I think Teresa and Aaron submitted it, was it like Easter Sunday or the day after, something like that. So that is now into TCQ for review. So the I-Plan is going to put the TMDL into action by outlining steps to reduce pollutant loads through voluntary and regulatory activities. It was created by community stakeholders, and basically it is the solution that identifies financial and technical resources, sets a timeline, provides support and guidance. Okay, let's talk about some of the management measures in these two plans that have been combined. CARP management measure, they came up with these 6: education, outreach, monitoring, research, wastewater collection system enhancements, stormwater drainage system, and ordinances and regulation improvements. Okay, they also had control actions. The difference between the management and the control is that management are like for sources that are not necessarily a point source. It's more managing larger things, like pet waste or agricultural byproducts. The control actions are more specific to a point, like a wastewater collection system or storm drainage system, and ordinance and regulations. Okay, and of those management measures, they broke them down into like different subcategories. And you can kind of read for yourself, but these are the different management measure activities under each category. That's for Cole Park and Ropes Park. See, there's quite a few subcategories to each one. The control activities and the sub activities. I was looking at the acronyms, and I was embedded at the Corps of Engineers after Katrina for a while as a consultant, and they love acronyms, and the people speak at just acronyms without any verbs sometimes. Or I worked for an airport project one time, and they had an acronym, but one of the letters was another acronym embedded within the acronym. What the heck is FOG? I don't know what FOG is. Does anyone know what FOG is? It's something to do with wastewater collection. What is it? Fats, oils, and greases. Okay, that sounds like some kind of a rap band or something. Fats, oils, and greases. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the FOG. Mystery solved. All right, OSO. I'm a little more familiar with these. So these are the management measures that we came up with. The OSO. Identify the on-site sanitary sewer facilities, promote, develop, and implement conservation plans, and promote the management of feral hog populations. That was a very interesting one. We had a agriculture kind of technical group that was talking about the population of feral hogs. There's a real problem in the water quality. And then promote the reduction of illicit dumping and proper disposal of animal carcasses. You would not believe what people do. They'll take their dead animals and dump them over the bridge at Oso Creek at Staples, or there's so many tires downstream of the Staple Street Bridge. They're just everywhere in the water. So I actually was putting in the kayak one time for one of our exploratory kayaking adventures, and somebody had dumped their asbestos tiles on the side of the bank of the creek. I mean, why? What is the mindset there? So we gotta get people educated and then stop that kind of behavior. And these are the other ones of the 9. Improve wastewater collection systems, promote the proper management of pet waste, promote, develop, and implement actions to restore and repair riparian zones. That's kind of an interesting one, because if you look at maps of the Oso Creek, there's farmland, some places right up to the creek and a couple places right through the creek in the upstream areas. There's a few ranchers that have been very good about keeping the riparian zones, the trees and the shrubs and the grasses around the creek. But if you compare that to what it was, I'm sure a couple hundred years ago, there's just this strip of trees that run along the creek. Well, guess where all the migratory birds like to roost when they come through? So one of the things we found was that the bird waste into the creek when the creek's not moving much is part of the problem. So I guess the answer, somebody was joking, well, let's kill all the migratory birds. And no, we're not going to kill the migratory birds. You got to create more riparian areas away from the creek so the birds have an alternate place to roost instead of right over the water. Let's see. Conduct water quality research, monitoring, sampling, enhance stormwater and green infrastructure programs. All right, we asked about stakeholders. Here are the stakeholders for the Oso Bay and Oso Creek. We have the city of Corpus Christi, city of Robstown, County of Oasis, those technical science and environmental folks, so transportation, agriculture, industry, coastal economy, homeowners are involved, colonias, academic, education, outreach, wildlife, recreation, tourism, and nonprofit advocacy. There was people involved of all of these different stakeholders on our groups. And these are the ones for the Cole Park and Ropes Park. All right, so what's next? The draft regional plan, I-plan, has been submitted to the TCQ, and so it's currently in the TCQ for review. There'll be a public comment period, and then TCQ commissioner's approval. The implementation will then be ongoing, and the evaluation adaptive management, that's if you, as you go through the implementation, you see things that need to be tweaked, it gives an opportunity to reevaluate things during, the subsequent years. This is really the meat of the I-plan. We get to the implementation part, and you get financing to do things. Okay. This is kind of a plug. Teresa, I'm going to throw this in there. The coordination committee will hold a meeting in June of 2024. So date to be determined. I think there's a sign-up sheet out in front. So let's get the momentum going again and get involved. Starting in September, the I-plan will be at the Coastal Bend Council of Governments under the direction of Environmental Director Teresa Finch. And I'm very excited about this because we've been working for many years on this plan, and we don't want to see it just sitting on the shelf. That's the worst thing you can do when you have stakeholders, so much energy and passion put into these ideas, and then it just sits there. So Teresa is going to kind of take the baton, and she has, being at the Council of Government, she's in a position where we can make these things start to happen. I know the city of Corpus Christi has already done several things already. And so things are happening. Now, I did see something on the news the other day that I think we need to look into more, but apparently the city is talking about dredging the Oso Creek to make it more help with flooding. So I'm sure we'll be involved with that topic because to me, that's not really the answer, but it has to go through environmental process. So please stay informed with that, and we'll help the city come up with solutions that are in the I-plan that will help flood control and water quality at the same time. You have a question here? The question was, what sort of solutions has the city already implemented? Good question. I know they've enhanced some street sweeping for the floatables problem they had. I know in the for Cole Park, they're experimenting with different catch basin screens that grab that trash. I know they've had a system of repairs of wastewater lines were somehow getting into the storm drain. I know they've done studies and trying to repair wastewater lines so that they're not just leaching into the stormwater. Teresa, what else do we have? Yeah, the smoke testing, if you're familiar with that, I've done that. You take it's a non-toxic vegetable oil and you burn it and force it into a sewer system, and you can see all the either illicit connections where people are connecting their backyard drain into the storm drain, or maybe a system's broken and it's causing that cross connection. We don't do that anymore. Years ago, they used to do, not this city, but other cities would do combined storm and sewer, and it's just, that doesn't work very well anymore. I do want to say that the planning department of the city invited us as a committee from the OSO committee to be a part of their development plans for the south side of Corpus Christi, the London area, and I think they've got another on the Bay side. So we have been at the table. We were invited by the city to give our ideas that we had learned about how to implement that in their actual planning documents. So that was a big step too. Any other questions on that? Okay, and then like Teresa said, there's a sign-up sheet out in the hallway for attending the June 2024 committee meeting. Yeah, we just talked about it. So the Corpus Christi Planning Department is using this for their 3 planning documents. That's pretty important because that drives the way the direction the city's going. And I think we had several things in there about Oso Creek and Oso Bay. Okay, these are just different resources. All right, I'm going to switch back one last time, see if there's anything else, and then we'll do our little demonstration. I'll just flip through these pretty quick because, again, it's a very similar slideshow. This was the CARP watershed overview and the Oso Bay and Oso Creek watershed overview. Everything that is in here was on Teresa's slideshow. This is a picture of the bridge at Staples and Oso Creek. People, like I said, used to throw their dead animals off the bridge. It's so convenient. This is the Greenwood wastewater treatment plant on Saratoga at Greenwood, and the creek is right there where the bridge is. But ironically, normally when the plant is just under normal operations, they're treating the water at a pretty good level. I mean, and it's discharging into just south of there, and then it runs into the Oso Creek, but it actually kind of helps the water quality because it's a pretty high treated water, and it's helping dilute, especially in stagnant periods of time. And I know when there's a big rainstorm, if they have overflows, you get, raw sewage coming out of the system in the past. And again, they've been improving those situations. But that's usually with a major storm event. And this is a couple pictures of the riparian area talked about. If you look at the picture on the right, that is that's kind of the strip I was talking about, the riparian area. Now, there's a farmer in the middle of that picture that has a pretty wide area, and they were pretty good about maintaining some riparian zones. But if you look at that lower picture, that's where the West Oso Creek comes into Oso Creek. And if you look just kind of to the right of that confluence, all of a sudden you don't see any more grass or trees or anything. It's just the dirt right on the agriculture. That's running right into West Oso Creek and then right into the Oso Creek. This is, I don't know if you're familiar with the Shannon Ditch. The city has made it into a really nice kind of a recreational corridor with greenways and bike paths and all that. And it dumps into Oso Creek right there at Yorktown, just east of Weber. This is where we were able to put our kayaks in because you can get down the bank on Shannon Ditch and then float into the creek. But that's also where somebody had dumped all their asbestos tiles. I did notice the city had blocked that off now, that access, so people come in and do illicit dumping there. I know one of the things in the development plans that we talked about is that if you think about it, it's hard to really access the creek. I mean, how many of y'all have gone out and tried to kayak on the creek? A show of hands. It's hard to get to. I mean, you have to get through a lot of places just to carry a kayak down there. So one of the things in the development plan was, hey, let's promote this jewel that we have and let people see it. And they'll appreciate it more if they get down there and they can see, hey, oh, that's a real problem. And so making public access a little bit easier for recreational purposes is part of the development plans. Of course, contact recreation, we have to make sure that it's not impaired, so we don't want people getting sick when they're touching the water when they're doing those activities. So the last slide I have on here is just a slide from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. It talks about the TMDLs. It's got our I-plan on there, and if you go to that website, the TCQ website, you can read in more detail about the whole program, implementation plan, TMDL, all that. That's all I have for now. We're going to do a little demonstration over here on the model, but before we do that, is there any questions that I've missed? Did I miss anything? Any of the committee members, anything you want to share? Right, sure.
We had bacteria all on all the Bay beaches. And so to do a regional plan is a step up, and it's a good thing. But it still looks like it's just Oso Bay, Oso Creek, and Cole and Ropes Park. Is there any, because the management measures are going to be the same for most of them. And so is there TCQ saying you still need to make sure it's regional and that it's included in all the Bay beaches?
Teresa, can you help me with that?
I mean, if you want to just say a little thing about Ponish here real quick, I mean, we're looking at that for the future and any others that might come. But right now, these are the ones that are finished. I don't know where we are on the TMDL.
There's a draft TSD and draft TMDL that we're working on with TCQ. Ponish, there's a bunch of very small watersheds all along up until University, and you get really high concentration, enteric oxide concentration during rain events, and then during the rest of the time the outlets are dry. They're a little bit different in that regard. Also, there's not a huge amount of things that you can do, I think, in those very small, watershed. And the measures that we have in our I-plan for carp, I think, will also help those smaller watersheds. But the modeling is still not finalized. That answer, Furnish? Or we'll probably come back.
You mentioned something here about there's small watershed. Just so you know, when I was with Goldston in 2001, we did the master plan. It took about 8 years to get it finished, and through the political process, there was a technical advisory group that included developers, and the plan, I think, was a little bit too heavily geared to the cost on development, and because of that, it never really got officially approved politically. I think the city's looking to kind of start a new stormwater master plan, but I asked for permission to have those documents, all those LiDAR data and all the watershed maps and everything. And so I was able to obtain those before that were gone. So if anybody ever needs any of that, it's about 20 years old, but it's still useful. If you need anything like that, just give me a call and I'll get that over to you. It's real helpful.
Sorry, Teresa, you may never get your list. Well, because I think municipalities were taking action. When they discovered a problem, they were taking action. So fortunately, we don't have a long list of things that were discovered 20 years ago that have to be done. I don't think that's the same for everything, but there were a lot of things that I think people were just unaware that there were problems in those areas, and when they were identified, they did something about it.
Thank you. Good comment.
Yeah, thanks for this. I was on the CARP committee. I guess I still am yet technically, as we haven't met very much in the last few years. And one of the things that the city has done that they should be bragging about, I think, is they installed, I'm going to call them dog poop stations in the parks. Now, that's assuming that the bacteria in the bay, Enterococcus, is coming from dogs. And we actually had an issue with that when I was on the CARP committee yet, because we had not, the committee had, nor the city had, nobody had done a study of that source of the bacteria. And the city initially dragged its feet on that, really stonewalled us, refused to do that, saying that it was far too expensive. And so my own local environmental group found $600 with a company out of Florida to do a pilot study of that. And that really led to research done by Dr. Turner over here, I think, as well, to try to get an understanding of that. And so I think those dog poop stations have helped. I'm just not sure how much. What we found, at least in the pilot study, and Dr. Turner can talk more about this, is that the bacteria was coming from dogs, but also from birds, and there was some human-sourced bacteria in the bay as well, which brings up a larger issue, maybe again, of kind of the city's infrastructure. I think that the city's addressing some of that as well, but that'd be good to kind of put together a compilation of things that the city has done over the last decade. That'd be a good idea.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I was wondering about one of the management measures. It was promote the management of the feral swine population. What specific actions are attached to that management measure of promoting?
Yeah, the details in the plan. Do you recall exactly the detail, Teresa? I know. Yeah, Yeah, I just don't recall off the top of my head what those were, but they're in the plan. We can review them. Yeah. Yeah, well, there was one, I don't know, there's one idea that didn't, they were talking about dropping poison and having them eat it. And we're like, wait a minute, that just sounds awful. And then now you've got toxins in the system. And so that kind of died off. Yeah, that wasn't a really smart, good idea. Oh, sure.
There was a slide you had that showed like a micro watershed that fed into the Cole and Ropes Park area. Was that based on LiDAR? Could you show that?
Yeah. And again, this is just a screenshot I captured, but if you want to see the full-blown map, I can get that to you later. Let's see, where were we? Yeah, this one. This is actually Cole Park. Up or down? Yeah. That's from carp. That was not LiDAR necessarily, but I mean it's based on the same data. I mean, we calculated the ridges, and of course they added in ropes down here, so it's not just coal. They picked up the area that drains into the Ropes Park area as well. Yeah, so his comment, if you didn't hear, was having some type of regulation that would require homeowners to do a hydrostatic test of their sewer lines. So if they're broken or leaking, that would show, and they would have to get those repaired. So that would probably be enough. It'd be an ordinance type management measure. the other one was the septic tanks. There's a big problem in some of the rural areas that don't have collection systems, and their failing septic tanks are a problem too because they leach up into the ground, on top of the ground, and then they get washed away the next storm into the creeks. Right, CARP is all fully urban, so that was more the homeowner issues. Right. We had a lot of areas in the Oso basin that were rural that didn't have collection systems, but did have septic problems. All right, any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Human fecal pollution. We did bacterial source tracking at Cole and Ropes Park, and human fecal pollution was really high at both of those parks. But it was interesting. It was the human specific fecal pollution was inversely correlated to the indicator bacterium that Texas Beach Watch uses. So these places are on the 303D list because of a fecal indicator bacterial called enterococci. Those levels are really high, and a lot of different sources can contribute to that. But what we found was there was actually an inverse relationship between the two. So enterococci goes up really high when it rains, but under dry conditions, the human fecal marker goes up, which to us is an indicator of aging infrastructure that's constantly leaking, and it gets diluted during a rainstorm. So if the rainstorm was big enough, that human marker would go away. But when we didn't have a whole lot of rain or we were in a dry spell, the human marker was really high. So that really spells aging infrastructure, right? Goals, the goal marker was kind of a non-specific marker for birds in general, and that was prevalent and probably a contributor as well. Dogs were a contributor too, but more minorly, but they were there as well. But some of those dynamics, like the dynamics with wet and dry loading, we thought were really interesting. And we've seen the same thing in other studies we've done in the coastal bend. We see that same wet-dry dynamic. Yeah, so if you're aiming for enterococci, you may not always be hitting the target for the human fecal pollution.
Thank you so much.
Having a program similar to the one in Oso Bay, Oso Creek, with the the septic systems for the older houses. If we would have a program, Jim, that would be voluntary program or voluntary testing, and then if there's something's found, that there's money to replace them instead of waiting until somebody sells, but maybe have a voluntary program that you could have it testing and then money to repair.
Oh, okay. So while the plan focuses on bacteria, you've spoken about floatable trash, you've spoken about fertilizers and agriculture. Does the I plan include measures to reduce floatables or any agricultural waste?
The floatables really weren't part of the I plan per se. Yeah. Yeah, we had an agricultural technical group that did study that. So yeah, there are definitely measures about agriculture. fertilizers. Oh, okay. Right. Any other comments, questions?
Hi, yeah, my question is, there's a lot of talk about communications and outreach related to this and being, that being an integral part of making this, making the solutions happen. So my question is there a communications or public relations plan that is integrated into this? And if so, who is involved in sort of constructing that plan and reaching the very diverse audiences and stakeholders in the Corpus Christi region?
Excellent question. Lois, were you on the education committee or no? So we had an education technical group or group that did that exact thing. They identified opportunities to educate the public. And I believe if you read through the I-plan, the measures have an education element associated with many, if not all of them. So you want to.
Do have a education measure associated with them. Oh, okay. And yeah, like leave it better than you found it, which the city has already incorporated. We already found several things, leave it better than you found it. But there's also another thing that we had a small amount of funding, and we were able to, at the university, get a communications person to write a little communications plan for us. Hasn't been implemented, but we have it. We didn't have any money to implement it. We just got it to be written. But each one does have an education and a communications component to it.
Good question. So it looks like it's 7 o'clock, so we need to wrap up. Did you want to have a demonstration of the model here real quick? Aaron, we're going to do one last question here.
In communication, I want to say one more. I think encourage people. The water quality is not bad, but when it rains, that's when we get in the thousands of CFUs per 100 milliliters. So talking about communication, don't go in the water when it rains and for the next couple of days. So if you spread that, then we already have a lot of the safety that's taken care of. And then kudos for the Center for Coastal Studies, Brian Nicolau, et cetera.
Thank you. So we're going to demonstrate that right now, what happens when you get pollutants after a big rain going into the bay. So the pollutants will be represented by food coloring, and then the rain, y'all can be the rain, or we already got spray bottles, you can be the rainmakers.
Hello? Oh, hey guys, everybody that's still here, can I have your attention real quickly? I know the fun really just got started, but just a reminder, I know I'm talking to you. Earth Day Bay Day is coming up April 13th. I already see a lot of this Saturday. That's right. And this is our 25th annual one. So we're going to celebrate in a really big way. And it's 100% free to our community. So come out. Our next Coastal Issues Forums is 13th. Yeah, May 13th. And that's with Gulf Coast Growth Ventures. And they're going to talk about their solar, thank you, their solar farm, their Peacock plan. So we'll get an inside look of that. Anyway, thank y'all so much.